Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I gotta tell you, I am absolutely thrilled you're here today, because we are about to go on a pretty incredible journey together. We're gonna trace the entire mystery of life, literally condensing billions of years of planetary history and pretty much the whole field of biology into one structured adventure. We're going all the way from the chaotic formation of our planet down to the microscopic codes that build, well, you. So get comfortable and get ready to be amazed by the world around you and the crazy world inside of you.
Okay, so let's quickly dive into our roadmap for today. We've got a really clear path to guide us. First, we're going to try to actually define what life is. Then we'll lay out the 4 fundamental principles of biology, followed by a look at the essential molecules of life. After that, we'll hit some of the historic discoveries that totally changed the game. And finally, we'll wrap up by peeking into the future of biology.
All right. Let's start right at the beginning, the definition of life and how we actually got from flaming rocks to living beings.
So picture this. 4.5 billion years ago, Earth was essentially just a giant, barren, flaming rock. So how on earth did we get from that to life? Believe it or not, scientists actually still debate the exact, hyperspecific definition of life. But honestly, it really boils down to the basic differences you see right here. Think about a cat. A cat metabolizes food for energy, it grows, it reproduces, and it reacts to what's happening around it. A rock? Yeah, a rock does absolutely none of those things. It just sits there. Life, at its core, is this active, ongoing, incredibly dynamic process.
Which brings us to the rules of the game, the 4 principles of biology.
Now, if you can wrap your head around these core concepts, I promise you everything else in biology just starts to click into place. These are the 4 unifying principles. And seriously, whether you're studying some weird ancient bacteria down in a deep-sea trench or figuring out how human bodies react to space travel, these 4 rules are your anchor. Number 1 is cell theory. Basically, all living things are made of cells, and new cells only ever come from existing cells. Number 2 is gene theory, the idea that the traits of living things are controlled by genes, which get passed down from parent to offspring. Number 3 is homeostasis, which is all about internal balance. And finally, number 4, evolutionary theory, the reality that the characteristics of populations shift and change over time.
Let's actually zoom in on homeostasis for a second, because it is absolutely crucial. By definition, it's the condition where a system is maintained in a more or less steady state. Just think about what happens to you on a really hot day, especially if you're exercising. You sweat, right? Humans are incredibly sweaty animals, and that sweat evaporating off your skin is a physical adaptation to bring your internal body temperature back down. But homeostasis is happening at a totally microscopic level too. Like a single cell is constantly working to keep a highly specific pH level. If it gets even a little too acidic or too basic inside, the cell's internal machinery just shuts down and the cell dies. So homeostasis isn't just a textbook term, it's literally what's keeping us alive right now.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is that when you get right down to it, biology is really just chemistry in disguise.
Fundamentally, you and I are just these highly organized, giant collections of chemicals interacting with each other. Specifically, there are 4 macromolecules that team up to make life happen. First, you got carbohydrates, that's your quick energy. Then lipids, these are your long-term energy storage, and they also form those incredibly important membranes that wrap around every single one of your cells. Next up are proteins. Proteins are the workhorses. They make up your physical tissues, and they act as enzymes, and enzymes are amazing. They're catalysts that massively speed up chemical reactions inside you, like lactase breaking down the lactose in a glass of milk. And finally, you have nucleic acids, which are the fundamental building blocks of your DNA.
But here's the thing. To fuel all of this intense chemistry, your body needs power. Enter ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. You can think of ATP as the energy currency of the cell. These molecules have phosphate groups that are held together by highly energetic chemical bonds. And when a cell breaks those bonds, snap, it releases the exact perfect burst of energy needed to move particles around, build tissues, and just keep all your cellular machinery humming along.
Okay, I want you to think about this number for a second. 100 trillion. That is the estimated number of microscopic cells operating inside your body right at this very moment. Just let that sink in. 100 trillion tiny chemical factories, all working in total unison, burning up ATP, building proteins, and fighting for homeostasis, all just so you can sit there and watch this explainer. I mean, it is absolutely awe-inspiring when you think about it.
And prepare to have your mind blown even a little bit further. 2 meters. If you were to take just one of those 100 trillion microscopic cells, open up its tiny nucleus, and uncoil the DNA that is tightly packed into its chromosomes, that single continuous strand of DNA would stretch about 2 meters long.
And remember that 2 meters of nucleic acid is folded up inside a cell so small you can't even see it with the naked eye. No way, right? It's wild.
All right, so knowing all the biological nuts and bolts is great, but let's pivot to the discoveries that changed everything, the human story.
Because the human story of how scientists actually cracked these microscopic codes is a total thriller. Let's do a quick sprint through history. In the 1800s, naturalists like Darwin and Mendel laid down the crucial groundwork for inheritance and evolution. Jump forward to 1953, and you have the brilliant structural work of Rosalind Franklin, James Watson, and Francis Crick finally unlocking that iconic double helix shape of DNA. Fast forward to 1983, Kary Mullis and his colleagues perfect PCR, a technique that essentially let us rapid-fire copy DNA. And then, skipping to 2012, Dowden and Charpentier helped characterize CRISPR-Cas9, and that gave humanity the power to actually edit genes with pinpoint precision, a real game changer.
But you know what's really amazing about this timeline? So many of these massive leaps were just accidental miracles. Take 1928. Alexander Fleming wasn't setting out to change the world that day. He just noticed some penicillium mold accidentally killing off bacteria in his petri dish. And boom, we get the world's first antibiotic. Or look at 1951. Scientists discovered that cancer cells taken from a woman named Henrietta Lacks were practically immortal in a lab setting. And because of that totally unexpected cell culture, just a year later in 1952, Jonas Salk was able to create the first effective polio vaccine. Millions of lives saved, all starting from unexpected lab results.
Now, of course, progress isn't all just lucky accidents. A lot of it comes down to having the right tools. Things like DNA polymerase allowed scientists to actually synthesize new DNA. Reverse transcriptase let them run the tape backward, turning RNA back into DNA. Restriction enzymes acted like molecular scissors, giving scientists the ability to cut DNA at very specific, predictable spots. And bioluminescent markers, those are literally glowing proteins, borrowed from jellyfish and fireflies, if you can believe it, that allowed researchers to visually track these invisible interactions. These tools were essentially the puzzle pieces falling into place to create modern molecular biology. Which brings us to our final stop, the future of biology and the story of you.
At the end of the day, all of these microscopic chemical rules, all these grand historical discoveries, they all exist to explain you, your biology, your ancestry, and ultimately, your future. There's this beautiful quote from the evolutionary biologist Theodosius Dobzhansky. He said, "Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution." And it's so true. Evolutionary theory is the thread that ties all this together. Random genetic mutations happen in that 2 meters of DNA we talked about. Sometimes those mutations are harmful, sure, but sometimes they lead to incredible adaptations that let an organism survive and thrive in a changing environment. That elegant, incredibly simple rule is exactly what has shaped the magnificent diversity of all life on Earth for the last 4.5 billion years.
And so, that leaves us right here, looking ahead. What is the next major biological discovery going to unlock? I mean, with tools like CRISPR-Cas9, we are stepping into completely unprecedented scientific and, let's be honest, ethical frontiers. We aren't just sitting back observing the mystery of life anymore. We are actually holding the pen. So I really hope this explainer has sparked some curiosity for you about the incredible, non-stop chemistry happening inside you every single second. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on this journey, and hey, keep wondering about the world.